Hello everyone and welcome to the clash for third place. This is sort of the final, but the little final, the big final between Hans and Levon Aronian is tomorrow. And here Pragnananda and Magnus Carlsen are battling it out to see who wins third place. It's a really a wild game. You guys will love it. Someone once said that in order to beat Magnus Carlsen, you have to beat him twice. It's not enough to beat him once. I don't think this is exactly what he had in mind, but yeah, let's see what happened. So Pragg with white opens with pawn to e4, and as you can see, it's a pretty interesting setup. The king is on e1, the rook is on h1, as you would have in regular chess. The bishop is on f1. Same as in regular chess, the rook on a1, same as in regular chess, so only half of the pieces really are scrambled. Castling will be done in normal way. So I guess maybe you can take some things from regular chess and bring it into this game. And we have pawn to c6, already a Caro-Kann to e4, we have pawn to c3, and pawn to f6. We have pawn to d4 and pawn to e5. Again, never play f6, yes, but maybe not in chess 960, or rather, with a position as similar as the one that we've discussed, maybe it's also not the best idea here. But Pragg also likes it, pawn to f3 and pawn to d5. And we have this very, very symmetrical sort of an X structure here. That they both decided that it's good to go. We have bishop to d3, and here Magnus breaks symmetry. He goes knight to d6, and we have bishop to f2. Magnus is the first one to release the tension in the center. D captures on e4, f captures on e4, and bishop to e6. We have castles kingside, and the knight 8 to f7. So Magnus waiting a little bit with the development of the bishop and castling. Knight to e3 and bishop to e7. And here just knight to e2. And this is a good a time as any to castle. But Magnus decides against it. He plays pawn to g6, and Pragg goes pawn to c4. We have b6 and pawn to d5. The king is in the center, so of course you want to open up some lines. C captures on d5, e captures attacking the bishop, and Magnus goes bishop to d7. We have pawn to b4, preparing pawn to c5 and queen to c7. Pragg develops the queen via the b3 square. Now he's ready to bring the rook into the game, and Magnus should strike with pawn to a5, or maybe even pawn to e4 and then a5, but he goes pawn to f5 first, and this is now a problem. As Pragg goes pawn to c5, he challenges the knight. Magnus captures, Pragg captures, and queen captures on c5. So he's not worried about the bishop on f2 for whatever reason. And Pragg just goes knight captures on f5. And now the problem is, what can Magnus do? Pragg is threatening the knight, the bishop is threatening knight to g7 check, is threatening the queen on the c5, and you could move it and then allow something like knight g7 check, let's say king f8, knight e6 check, where you can capture, but it's really not the best. Something like king g8 and rook c1, and that rook will never see the light of day. So it's going to be a very, very difficult position for Magnus to play. Magnus doesn't like this, as you know, they say activity above all, plays queen captures on f2. And this is one of the weirder queen sacrifices we've had in a while, so we can even do it in slow motion. Rook captures on f2 and g captures on f5. Okay, you do have the strong center. And knight to g3. Magnus plays pawn to e4, and here Pragg could just bring the bishop back, and his position is perfectly fine. But he plays queen to b2, and he sort of counters with an attack on the rook, but he completely forgets that the knight is defending the rook, and Magnus just takes the free bishop. So Kaisa definitely smiles upon Magnus this game, as now it's a game. You have to play it. You are a little bit better. I mean, you have a queen, but Magnus certainly has compensation. So okay, we have rook to e1, and that is what I meant. At the beginning, to beat Magnus or to beat any top player, you have to beat him twice. But I don't think this is exactly what is meant by that. I mean, of course, you guys know what I mean. King to f8, unpinning from the e-file, and rook to f3. We have rook to e8 and knight to h5 now by Pragg. And not easy for Magnus to find a move here. He goes rook to g8, which is by far the best, and Pragg just counters him along the g-file. We have bishop to g5. Magnus spending some almost 2.5 minutes on this move, and rook captures on e8. It is the only move that gives Pragg the advantage. Bishop captures, and finally rook captures on d3. We have knight e4 by Magnus, and rook to b3, preparing rook to b8. We have knight d to f6, knight f to d6. Knight f to d6, and rook to b8. So Pragg's idea is to simply pin everything down and for Magnus to not be able to move. Magnus goes bishop e3 check and king to f1. Anything other than king to f1 loses terribly. If you go king to h1, then knight to f2 check is just game over. You go king to g1, knight to d3 check wins back the queen. So that would be a problem. King f1 has to be played, and now king to f7. And there is only one way for Pragg to play for a win, and it's not easy to spot because it's, definitely not the first move you think of. Or maybe it is because you guys are amazing players. So what would you play here with white? Queen e5, a beautiful centralizing move, and here there's just not a good move for Magnus. Everything is completely pinned down. You can't move the knight as the knight hangs, or rather even the bishop. If you move this knight, also the f5 pawn hangs. If you move the rook, then the bishop on e8 is defended by the knight, but you can't really move anything. That's the problem. And you could go for something like king to g6, maybe put pressure on the knight, but then queen e6 check will put pressure on the rook. So Magnus tries rook to g6, which is even the one of the two top moves recommended by the engine. Is just that his position is so bad, it cannot be helped. We have queen to h8, Pragg goes after the h7 pawn, and Magnus just gives it up. Bishop to h6, we have queen captures on h7, bishop to g7, and now knight captures on g7. Rook captures on g7, queen to h6, and now rook to g6. Magnus says, all right, I mean, I have two knights, I have a rook, I have a bishop. How are you checkmating me with just a queen and the rook? But that's exactly the problem for Magnus. Pragg does not have to checkmate Magnus. He goes queen e3. He says, I'm just going to grab a pawn, move the queen, and advance the a pawn to victory. It's as simple as that. We have rook g7. Magnus hopes to move the king and defend the pawn, but of course Pragg just gobbles it up. Queen captures, king to g6, and now queen to b6. And if Magnus does nothing, then the a pawn just marches forward. So bishop to b5 with check. We have king to g1, and now king to f6. We have queen to d4 check. You have to defend the rook. King to g6, and again queen to e5. Just beautifully centralizing by Pragg. And we have rook to c7. Again, you could play something like bishop to c4 and play a slow move, but then the pawn just marches forward, like we've said. Magnus tried to go active. He played rook to c7, also playing on Pragg's time because he's down to 16 seconds on the clock. But now it's mate in 4, and it's not a very difficult one to spot. I'm sure you guys already see it. So I'm just going to show it. Rook to g8 check. King to h6, and now queen to e6 check. And he was in this position on move 43 that Magnus Carlsen resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. If you go to h5, then it's just a queen g6 check, king h4, and queen to h6 is checkmate. And other than that, you really don't have all that much. You can start by giving up a knight, but that's silly to show something like that. So yeah, Pragg beats Magnus once, then he gives back the advantage, and then he beats him a second time. Definitely worthy of even of a first place, but this is a fight for third place. So we'll see what happens. Magnus gets the white pieces next, so he might bounce back. I will keep you guys informed as we are preparing for the big final tomorrow. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Big congratulations to Pragg on such a wonderful victory. I mean, it's not, that's definitely something else. Just, showing Magnus that you can beat him, and then you give him a free piece, and then you beat him again. Not a lot of people have done that. So yeah, big congratulations. I would like to thank Nick Lynn, Paul Hinamund, Ricardo Cordona Lopez, James White, and Robert Palande for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.